World of Warcraft has seen some very dark times. Content droughts, design fiascos, scandals, systems too complex for their own good, and radio silence as community engagement hits an all-time low. And now Final Fantasy XIV and other competitors are closing in. But I don't think this has to be the end of the story for World of Warcraft. What World of Warcraft needs is simpler systems, more content, better community engagement so that the dev teams know what will get players excited to pick up World of Warcraft again. To that end, I have invented a system of my own, a simple system that gives players huge amounts of customization, that lets developers add awesome and useful abilities without fear of spellbar bloat, giving players the ability to upgrade 3 of their spells to be something new. I'm cooking up concepts for 7 of these upgrade spells for every spec. Some of them are returning favorites, some of them are brand new. Either way, Blizzard has my express permission to use every concept I post about in these videos in the comments or on the forums. And if the Blizzard developers are too pressed for time to engage with the community, then I will. I'll get the feedback on this concept, and even if they don't take a single one of my ideas, they'll know what the players want, and most importantly, why. And they can use that to make the game better, because I want this game better. I want WoW to last another decade. Demon Hunters are an example of how Blizzard would build a class from scratch these days if they had a chance to do so. Minimalistic rotation, lots of cooldowns, many of them quite flashy indeed. This has the effect of making Demon Hunters terrific at dealing burst damage, though not so great at sustained. And let's face it, they feel like they could use some more abilities to make the rotation a bit more interesting simply because of how minimalistic they are. And with that context in mind, I added 2 new abilities that are meant to make things more interesting. The first new ability that I added is Chaos Burn. It's got a 1.5 second cast time and neither costs nor produces fury. It hurls a bolt of green lightning at the enemy, burning them for chaos damage. Every 20 fury you spend decreases its cast time by 10%. This ability becomes Chaos Sphere when you enter Metamorphosis, dealing additional damage. It has no cooldown. Here's the thinking. Havoc, indeed the Demon Hunter class in general, feels very minimalistic, with plenty of damage abilities that have long cooldowns, but not much variety to the basic rotation apart from those cooldowns and talents. I feel like something to spice up the rotation is in order. Chaos Burn is meant to be to Havoc what Howling Blast is to Frost Death Knights, an ability you normally wouldn't use unless you were forced into range, but that has some passives that can make it usable during your rotation. Also, it is intended to give the Demon Hunter a bit more Warcraft 3 flavor. Mana Burn was a basic spell that Demon Hunters had, and it was a green bolt of lightning. While it's been proven time and again that mana-destroying abilities do not have a place in World of Warcraft with the current resource design, that doesn't mean we can't have an ability that aesthetically resembles Mana Burn, and that works with Havoc's mastery. As for Chaos Sphere, that's because of what Metamorphosis did in Warcraft 3. It gave your Demon Hunter a ranged auto-attack that dealt chaos damage, and indeed, that did splash damage. I'll get into the splash damage later. Also, let's face it, I'm obsessed with ranged damage abilities that have no cooldown. I really am. I play a Holy Paladin, and losing Denounce gave me that obsession. I so want it back! And in fact, I put Denounce back as part of the Holy Paladin upgrades because I personally feel that every class should have a ranged damage ability with no cooldown. But hey, if that obsession gets me to propose something good, so much the better. And honestly, why not let Vengeance have it too? One more ranged ability, one more single target ability you get situationally. Why not? The second new ability that I added is called Damn Soul. It has a 12-second cooldown and fires a jagged blast of high chaos damage at the target, consuming a variable amount of fury to increase the damage further. It is only usable on targets below 20% health. The thinking here is Demon Hunters could use an execute. I've already said the spec is a little too minimalistic and could use some more things to shake it up, and this is what I came up with. Feedback would be appreciated here. Like, did I get the numbers wrong? Did I get the effects wrong? I mean, please do let me know what you think of these two new abilities. With those out of the way, let us get to the upgrades. Vengeance was a spec that I had a little difficulty finding abilities to upgrade for. I mean, Sheer was already being upgraded in the talent grid, so that took that off the table. In the end, I think I got a pretty okay spec of upgrade abilities overall, though I've got some doubts about what I did, especially with what I did to upgrade demon spikes. I am really hoping for feedback about what I've done here. The first upgrade is Syad's Fang, an upgrade for Fell Devastation. It's got the same cooldown and the same healing and the same fury cost, but it focuses the damage onto a single target, dealing shadow damage instead of fire damage. Obviously, it does significantly more damage. The second upgrade is Bloodlet, an upgrade for Throwglaive that deals damage as a bleed effect and hits more targets than Throwglaive would normally hit. The third upgrade is that upgrade for demon spikes that I have my doubts about. I'm calling it Fell Shadow. It improves dodge chance by 20% instead of parry by 15%. It lasts 9 seconds instead of 6, and it has a 30-second recharge and 3 charges. The fourth upgrade is Sigil of Shadow, an upgrade for Sigil of Flame that deals shadow damage instead of fire. It has a shorter cooldown and slightly lower damage, but it has a wider area of effect. The fifth upgrade is Nether Effigy. It's an upgrade for Vengeful Retreat. You damage nearby enemies and leap backwards, but when you do, you leave a ghostly effigy behind made of fell energy in the place that you leave. That effigy has 20% of your maximum health. Targets that are currently attacking you will instead attack the effigy. And if the effigy takes a damaging attack that kills it, it will explode and deal chaos damage. But any damage over the amount that killed the effigy will be redirected to you, and enemies that were attacking the effigy will once again attack you. This has a longer cooldown than Vengeful Retreat. The sixth upgrade is Arcing Chaos, an upgrade for Chaos Burn. It deals less single-target damage, but violet and green lightning jumps from your main target to nearby targets, burning them as well. This becomes Chaos Splash when you go into Metamorphosis, which deals Chaos Splash damage at range. Finally, we have Immolate Weapon, an upgrade for Immolation Aura. It deals less damage to secondary targets, but it deals more damage to your primary target, doing the damage through your auto attacks. Here's the thinking. Arcing Chaos and Immolate Weapon I already discussed in the Havoc video. Basically, Arcing Chaos is one more AoE damage ability that you can use now and then, and Immolate Weapon trades multi-target damage for single target. You know, just about every one of the other 5 upgrades is some kind of trade-off. Shorter cooldowns for less damage, damage over time instead of up front, extra single target damage traded for multi-target. Every one of these, except for Nether Effigy, is meant to be a trade-off. If such a trade-off isn't worth it, or is always better or always worse, then please let me know. With Fell Shadow, I was aiming for a ratio close to 3 seconds of uptime for every 10 seconds of total time. If the ratio was not the thing that I should have been paying attention to, please do let me know. I am open to modifying Fell Shadow in any way, whether it's a shorter cooldown and a shorter duration, a different effect, whatever. You name it, I do it. I mean, I'd prefer it if this upgrade didn't turn into a must-have. I figure if there's a must-have, then tweaking the base ability is a wiser move. Nether Effigy was simply a thought that occurred to me that could turn into a slick way of escaping damage. It noticeably changes what the ability does, though, effectively giving you 20% temporary health and a way to kite the enemies. If that's too much, then, please let me know. Bloodlet was intended to be a way to quickly pick up packs of enemies if the situation should change mid-fight and it should prove necessary to pick up a pack of enemies. Maybe that was too situational. I don't know. If it just plain looks like it's cool, then I'll keep it around for that reason alone until and unless feedback from experienced Vengeance Demon Hunter players tells me otherwise. Sigil of Shadow was another trade-off. Wider AoE damage more often at the cost of less of it when the sigil explodes. Is that bad? Is that good? Is it boring? Is it useful? You decide. Honestly, I didn't take enough notes while I was putting this together, so I don't remember exactly what I was thinking or whether this was an example of me running out of ideas or not. It might have been. There are also a couple of abilities that I'm keeping in my back pocket for vengeance. For example, a new spec-specific ability called Spirit Crush. It's a single-target Fury Spender that deals more damage to a single target than Soul Cleave would do, also consuming nearby soul fragments. It's specific to vengeance and has no cooldown. One thought that I had had was to make a single target upgrade for Soul Cleave, but then I thought having an AoE spender and a single target spender at the same time sounds better offhand than having to pick just one to have on your spell bar at a time. That's why I have adding Spirit Crush as a new baseline vengeance ability in my back pocket instead of making it an upgrade for Soul Cleave. And I decided to put it in my back pocket because, well, Soul Cleave seems to be the main AoE damage tool for vengeance. Not that you don't have other tools like Sigil of Flame or Throw Glaive. But, Vengeance's job is to maintain threat and keep enemies off the squishies. It's not necessarily to deal damage. And having a single target spender is good for damage, but not necessarily for maintaining threat and keeping them off the squishies. But then again, by that logic, I shouldn't have upgraded Shield of the Righteous into Shield of the Crusader for Protection Paladins, so shoot. If I'm told that it would be wiser to add Spirit Crush as an upgrade for Soul Cleave, that is what I will do. Somehow I kind of feel like the likelihood of that is a little low. I mean, if I'm told that it would be good to add Spirit Crush as a brand new ability instead, then that's what I'll do. Another upgrade I might pull out of my back pocket later, depending on feedback, is upgrading Soul Cleave into some kind of Nova attack that can deal damage to targets behind you and that goes beyond the 5-target cap, but that deals less damage per target. Feedback would be appreciated here. Heck, if feedback demands for it, I could, in theory, have a Nova upgrade for Soul Cleave and a single target upgrade for Soul Cleave in the same system. It's okay to have more than one upgrade for the same baseline ability. I mean, it's been done before. Also, I'd thought about focusing on upgrading the sigils, since those are some nifty utility abilities that could be given new uses easily enough. And, if I might resort to that if I'm told too many of these upgrades are actually downgrades that can't be turned into upgrades in any practical way, or that the trade-offs I'm trying to implement can't possibly be balanced. I'd like it if the upgrades are more useful in some situations and less useful in others, so that every ability has a plausible place, including the base abilities that you get before any upgrades touch them. But, well, just because that's what I was aiming for doesn't mean that's what I actually hit. Obviously, I need guidance from some experienced Demon Hunter players. Hopefully the kind of back and forth and open and honest and in-depth communication that the devs, or some Blizzard employees at least, should be giving us will result in something that is fun, reasonably balanced, and exciting for players to see in the end. Now, when I started out with these upgrade concepts, I went ability by ability, not purpose by purpose, if you see what I mean. I asked myself, which abilities exist in this specs kit that I can give an upgrade to? And when I created upgrades based on which abilities I could upgrade, I often aimed for something that I thought looked or sounded cool. Almost always I wanted the upgraded ability to feel at least a little bit different from the original. Often I tried to create some kind of trade-off, making the upgrade situationally useful based on things like the number of targets affected or having a stronger effect with a longer cooldown, things like that. Rarely did I upgrade the same ability more than once for the same spec, but while I was putting together each spread of upgrades, what I didn't do, and what I probably should have done in retrospect, was to figure out what goals a player would have while they're looking at a list of upgrades, and then make sure upgrades exist in the spread that allow the player to pick upgrades that help them achieve those goals. In my next iteration, I plan to have that design goal in mind, to consider what the player wants to accomplish and how they could accomplish it with the upgrades. I strongly suspect that in this next iteration, there will be a lot more cases where I upgrade the same ability in 2 or more different ways. That will give players more options, and since that's going to be the goal with goal-oriented design, who knows? I might even have 3 different upgrades for the same ability in the end. However, I can do this much more effectively in an environment that has a great deal of feedback available, and that's where you come in. You have knowledge that comes from experience with these specs. I don't. I tried to do my research on Wowhead and Icy Veins for each spec, but inevitably there'll be things you know that I don't because you have experience that I don't have. You'll have more and better ideas than I could hope to have, and I know I need those, so please, let me know what you think of these upgrades and what better ideas you have for what to put in their places. When I looked back at the upgrades that I had in the first iteration with goal-oriented thinking in mind, which I'm ashamed to say I didn't have when I started out, this is a learning process, I realized that Immolate Weapon and Syad's Fang were single-target upgrades, and the Demon Spike upgrade wasn't actually single-target specific, but it would probably be what a Demon Hunter tank would pick up alongside Syad's Fang and Immolate Weapon. But Arcane Chaos, Bloodlet, and Sigil of Shadow were all multi-target upgrades, and since any tank would probably want to upgrade their bread-and-butter active mitigation, maybe having 3 of those in the same upgrade spread wasn't such a good idea. I'm not sure. I really would like feedback on this. Then again, if there are plausible situations where it would be optimal to have all 3 into skip buffing active mitigation, well, maybe that's not so bad. Again, I'm assuming I didn't pork it up with Fell Shadow. I know I might have. But I hope that I can make Fell Shadow useful in the end with feedback iteration, not to mention making the whole spread useful in the end. So please do keep the feedback coming so that I can make a much better second iteration. Of course, I know Blizzard probably won't take many, or even any of these suggestions. Heck, they might even have something objectively better in store for us than the semi-borrowed power upgrade system that I've cooked up here. But knowing what gets players excited will be helpful to them even so. That is why I'm sacrificing so much of my free time and energy on Project Decade. And who knows? They might just need these ideas to get WoW going in the right direction. Heck, if this video series just gets the Blizzard developers into the habit of creating a blue post with the thinking in it that goes in depth enough for us to understand what they're doing and what their design goals are, then that would be a huge step forward. Even saying the thinking out loud is sometimes enough to get you a new perspective on what you're doing. Is it really what people want? Does it serve the purposes that it really should be serving in the end? Am I really doing something just to make a system look awesome instead of making the game overall better? What does it do for the fun factor? Am I making the mistake of prioritizing my design goals over the fun factor? Are my design goals the right design goals to have? Do my ideas match the spec's feel and flavor? Is it a net gain? Is it genuinely awesome? Things like that. Plus, we just plain need more communication from Blizzard. If Project Decade gets the development team into the habit of telling us the thinking for every change they make, then the whole project will have been worth it, even if they don't take a single suggestion. Again, if you see something you don't like bad trade-offs or something you know is counterproductive or useless, or if you've thought of an idea that's better or cooler or more useful than mine, then don't hesitate to let me know. The more details you can provide about why you don't like it and what makes one of my ideas counterproductive or useless, or about why your idea is cooler or more useful than mine, the better. One of the main goals of Project Decade is to give whoever's in charge of class design and player power systems a good idea what appeals to players and what will actually get them excited to get back to WoW again. And the more you can say about the wherefore and the why, the better. I fully intend to iterate on this project and make changes in response to feedback. I know I'm going to make mistakes. Heck, I've already seen mistakes in some of the things that I've done. But if those mistakes generate the kind of discussion that Blizzard needs to hear, so much the better. Blizzard needs to see player engagement, humility, and feedback actually making change in action so they can start doing what needs to be done to turn WoW around. It can be done and it should be done. World of Warcraft can last another decade. So keep the feedback coming, folks. There's one last thing. I began working on Project Decade videos back in July, and considering how many months it has taken, the fact that there are 36 different sets of feedback to curate and compile, and multitudes of decisions to make based on feedback received, ideas others have come up with, and how to weave everything together into a fun, functional, and exciting whole, I don't have a chance in the tramaculum of getting this done in any reasonable length of time unless I get volunteers to help me curate and compile the feedback I'm getting. If you're willing to help curate feedback, please let me know. If I get enough interest, I will set up a Discord server where we can coordinate everything. Thank you in advance for your feedback and support. Let's make World of Warcraft the best game that it can be.